Hello students, welcome to week 3 for COM 333 oral interpretation. This week we're focusing on cultural hermeneutics, and we are looking at some of the ideas that relate to that in terms of performing oral interpretations of various texts. So we're reading chapter 3 this week, and we are watching 4 videos. Two of them are related to the idea of hermeneutics and Gertz's idea of interpreting cultures and such. So it's really, really important that we watch those videos in addition to 2 sample oral interpretations. We're also completing weekly review number 3 this week, and we are picking our topic we're picking a topic and developing a rationale for our oral interpretation topic project. Weekly review number 3 asks you to complete a reflective essay of at least 500 words in complete APA format, cover page, abstract, the whole shebang, where you clearly define Gertz's theory of cultural hermeneutics. In this, you will explain how this theory and his idea of interpreting the world as a text is applicable to oral interpretation performances, and use the ideas of interpreting the world as a text to share how this item is a text according to Gertz. You also will be explaining how this all relates to the idea of oral interpretation performances. And this is going to make more sense when I lecture on this in a few minutes, so you can kind of get a better idea of what it is. But essentially, you're taking this theory and telling me how it relates to the idea of oral interpretation and a lot of the nature of the information in our course. The oral interpretation project topic rationale assignment that's due this week stems from our topic selection assignment, which was last week. So now what you'll be doing is providing a solid and well-developed rationale, so reasoning for the artifact you chose in week 2. I'm going through all of those now, and so if there's a particular issue with your topic or your artifact, I will contact you individually. If not, you can blanketly know that it has been approved. This is the second step in our 4-step project to complete our oral interpretation performance. And so it's really important to know that how this differs from the assignment last week is this week we are focusing on providing a clear reasoning and justification for what we will be performing as our topic or our communication artifact in this assignment. So in this, you're going to, in about 200 to 300 words, you're going to clearly tell me the rationale for your artifact. Then you will clearly identify what type of performance you plan to complete: prose, poetry, drama, and then share how your artifact fits within the requirements for that selected performance type. So you'll know we should be at the point within our reading, and if we're not, you'll have to do some research on your own to what clearly is prose, poetry, and drama. Prose is when we're performing a narrative text, usually some type of nonfiction text, a book, or some type of biography or autobiographical piece, or maybe a portion of scripture if you want to rationalize it as that, or a speech is usually something of that nature. Poetry is self-explanatory, and then drama is something related either to script, song could be poetry too, or TV show, or even some type of fictional work, depending on what that work is. So the main thing is to identify that prose is more expository, not the fluffy dramatics or anything like that. It's more of those texts that don't fit within poetry or drama. And then so those are the main things you'll be doing, is providing me with a strong reasoning for that. Tell me what type of performance you plan to complete and how your artifact fits within one of those 3 types. If you have particular questions on that, email me and reach out early in the week. I'm more than willing to help out. But more importantly, we'll be moving into looking into some of the phenomenological traditions of communication. So I understand that the majority of the students in this class are liberal studies students. You're all, after going through your introductions, I clearly know that you're all preparing to be teachers or go into some type of educational work at some point. So the field of communication studies, looking at it explicitly from an academic sense, may not be commonplace for you. So looking at that, it's important to know that communication theory is divided into 7 traditions. We're looking at cultural hermeneutics today. It applies in a lot of other fields as well, but we're looking at it specifically in communication, and it is organized within our field of theory and underneath phenomenological theories. So a phenomenological tradition in communication, we don't need to worry about the rest of them, but this will help give us some context, views communication as a dialogue or the experience of otherness. We are intentionally analyzing everyday life, and we view communication as a ritual. So all theories within this tradition views communication as a ritual where communication brings people together to share an inner experience, and how interest in others perceive or develop some type of phenomenon, and that storytelling and narrative expressions are critical within the idea of communication. And so this should have some relevance to you, because we did look at our different types of communication project in week 1 with transmission and ritual communication. But I wanted you to know and to understand that as you work on developing your rationale for your oral interpretation project, or you work on some other aspects of course assignments within this course, you may be looking specifically at phenomenological tradition within communication. And phenomenology is a huge concept within communication, because that's really what oral interpretation is. It's interest and storytelling and narrative expressions that where we utilize communication that brings people together to share experiences and things of that nature. So Clifford Geertz developed this theory, cultural hermeneutics, with the idea of looking at communication in a hermeneutic loop. All communication is considered to him as a cultural interpretation, and that interpretations, so text, he calls communication text, interpretations are either perceived as thick or thin. A thick description, a thick interpretation of any type of communication is that the interpreters describe cultural practices from the native's point of view. So the interpretation itself comes off as if the interpreter is a part of that culture. This is important as we develop our oral interpretation pieces, because we really have to get in there and provide thick descriptions. Thin descriptions are where people merely just describe the behavioral patterns with little sense of what it means to be a participant themselves in a particular culture. So if you look at your oral interpretation text as a culture, or what you're analyzing, is we want to go in there and pull out thick descriptions. You want your performance to really be thick within the description area, not thin. We don't want you just to merely describe and read it verbatim and provide nothing as terms of a performance. We want you to get in there, and as we watch these interpretations, we feel as if you are a native person within this text. This text is you, and you represent that. He also agrees that all interpretation utilizes a particular circle or loop, and that a cultural interpreter translates between various points of view so that a reader or listener can have an understanding of insider and outsider feelings within a situation. So you'll see in some of the oral interpretations that we watch that sometimes they go between being an outsider looking in, describing something, and then performing it as an insider. And so as you look at this, the whole loop starts with the top of understanding the whole of life. You raise questions for the need of the meaning or event. The need for the meaning event is projected through action or speech. Engagement, the phenomena happens within life. You come back up with eliciting feedback, and then challenge, trigger, which is reflection, reinterpretation, and understanding begins all over again. And that all communication runs within this hermeneutic loop of cultural interpretations and texts and things of that nature. Expanding on that a little further, it's important to understand that hermeneutics is literally an interpretation of text. It's interpreting the text in 3 categories: its intent, its content, and its context. So as you analyze, because this is what we're beginning to do now, your artifacts, that's the first part of what we do. We have to fully analyze it before we can perform our analysis. We need to fully look at its intent, its content, and its context, particularly in relation to some of Geertz's main ideas and his theory. So methodologically, the assemblages of understanding the whole of something has to be analyzed is through an analysis of its parts. So if we look at its intent, its content, and its context, then we can clearly see the big picture or the whole of the text by analyzing the minutia and the components or the parts of the text. So those are the 3 areas you should be completing your oral interpretation analysis of. And that's something we'll be doing next week in week 4 with our midterm. So just kind of keep that in mind as we move forward. But more particularly, that was a brief overview of this very expansive and deep theory. You will also, just recapping, be reading chapters 3 of Performing Text. There's 4 videos for you to watch. You have weekly review number 3 due, and oral interpretation project. Your rationale for your topic is due as well. If you have any questions, please reach out. I've really had a pleasure with getting to know some of you this term, and I look forward to getting to know the rest of you. Have a blessed week.